Hey, this is Warren Redlick. What is going to lead to Tesla stock breaking out? What we've seen is Tesla stock has been trading in a window from 100 to 250, something like that. It may be a little bit above 250 now, but what's going to drive Tesla stock to 300, 400, 500 and beyond? So there's two classes of breakouts I'm going to talk about. In this video, I'm going to focus on smaller breakouts. And the next video, I'm going to talk about the big breakouts, Robotaxi and Optimus. But in the event that doesn't happen, the event that doesn't happen soon, what might happen in the short term, short to medium term, next year or two, that could lead to Tesla stock going up significantly? So there's a few we're going to talk about. Before we dive into what those breakouts are, let's just have some benchmarks here. So the 2023 revenue for Tesla, the year's revenue, was about 96 billion, or call it $100 billion. Gross profit for the two previous years, for 2023 and 2022, were about $20 billion. So when we're thinking, well, where's Tesla stock going? You tend to connect it to earnings, right? So what are the earnings and what does that translate to in terms of share price? I'm not going to focus on macro. I would say macro is another smaller breakout that's happening right now. As interest rates come down, it becomes easier for Tesla to sell cars. As interest rates comes down, it becomes easier for Tesla to sell solar, Megapack, Powerwall, etc. So those things will tend to increase Tesla sales and increase Tesla's profits, the macro effect. So that's a positive, but I'm not going to dive into the specifics of that because it's just plain and simple. If interest rates go down, which it looks like they're going to do, then Tesla's probably going to do better. Now, that's the interest rate thing is pretty specific to the United States, and more than half of Tesla's products are sold in other countries. So I'm not sure it's that big of a deal, but it's still something. The interest rate falling and the anticipation that interest rates will continue to fall is what's driving the current movement in the stock. But nobody really knows what drives the stock. And by the way, Tesla Air t-shirt and other t-shirts at elonbits.com. The first breakout I want to talk about is Megapack. And the idea is not when is something obvious to us that we see, okay, this is going to be huge for Tesla stock. And this is going to be huge for the company. This is going to generate lots of revenue and lots of profit. It's when does Wall Street get it? When does the investor class get it? The people who aren't rabid Tesla fans. When do they start to see it? And when they start to see it is when they see revenue and profit growing significantly. Megapack is like right on the edge because last quarter they had $3 billion in revenue, which is significantly higher. It's more than $1 billion more revenue than any previous quarter for Tesla Energy. With Lathrop Megafactory fully ramped, you'd be talking about 10,000 Megapacks a year. That's at $1 million average selling price. That's $10 billion in revenue. Lathrop Megafactory is about fully ramped. We've got the Shanghai Megafactory coming online soon. Should start production in Q1 of 2025. You can see down the road if Tesla scales production to just 5 megafactories. And I think the future is a lot more than 5 megafactories. That's roughly $50 billion in revenue. Maybe prices come down a little bit. It's $40 billion in revenue, but you get the idea. In the last quarter, energy revenue surged to $3 billion. Don't be surprised if it falls back again in Q3. It surged to $3 billion and they had a roughly 20% gross margin on energy. So a 20% gross margin on $50 billion in revenue would be $10 billion in gross profit. Now let's take a step back. Tesla's revenue last year was $100 billion. Tesla's gross profit in the last 2 years was $20 billion. So $50 billion in revenue from Megapack and $10 billion in gross profit is half of what Tesla's doing already. So that's a big jump in what the value of the company is. It's a significant jump. That's the kind of thing that if investors start to figure out, hey, wait a minute, there's a path here to increasing revenue by $50 billion a year. There's a path here to increasing gross profit by $10 billion a year. Okay, we should increase the value of the stock. We should increase our price expectation of the stock, given that we understand. And this is how I'm going to break down these other smaller breakouts. To some extent, Megapack may already be priced into the stock, but I don't think everyone's figured it out yet. And then, what's the path? Well, I think we're going to see at least one more mega factory in America. We've got Shanghai Megafactory coming on. We're probably going to see at least one or more of those. Maybe it's a mega factory in India. Maybe it's a mega factory in Europe. Mega factory is a factory that makes Megapacks, and it's a large factory. Maybe they come up with a larger scale factory to produce more. Battery costs, the prices will come down, but battery costs are also coming down. They're using lithium iron phosphate, which is a relatively low cost battery technology. The next big breakout that I see happening, and I think this is coming fairly soon, is semi. Right now, we know Tesla has about 100 semis out in the world, a large share of them with Pepsi Frito-Lay, and Tesla has their own. They expect to start selling semis to other customers soon. They're still in pilot production. So the first factory is slated to produce 50,000 semis a year. That's going to start producing next year and be fully ramped by the end of 2026. So once you start seeing semis in the quarterly reports, will they break it out separately? I think they might break it out separately as a product line. Where does it go? Well, 50,000 semis produced in North America at the factory in Nevada. Dan Priestley just said to a group in Europe that they're expecting to make a semi factory in Europe. I would say when you look at the global market for semi class trucks, there's room for at least 2 factories in China. The Chinese market is basically larger than all other markets in the world combined. So you could see 2 semi factories in China, 2 semi factories in North America, 1 in Europe, and you've got 5 semi factories. You got 250,000 units a year. At a $300,000 average selling price, that'd be $75 billion in revenue with 20% gross margins. That's another $15 billion in gross profit. I think we're going to see semi appearing in financials in late 2025. I think we're probably going to see an announcement of a second factory. Really, Dan Priestley already kind of hinted that a second factory. So once the analyst class, the Wall Street class can see, hey, we see a revenue line here, we see a profit line here, and then they can see the path to larger growth, you can see that factoring in. So when you look down the road, $75 billion in revenue in 4 or 5 years is a big chunk compared to current revenue of $100 billion. And you piece that together with Megapack, right? You had 50 billion from Megapack, 75 billion from semi. You're already more than previous year's revenue. You're already more than the previous year's gross profit or the year before's gross profit. So you can see where that goes. You can see a lot of potential there. And it's you need, I think the way the investor class thinks is first we need to see the revenue, we need to see the profits, and we need to see the growth. So Tesla needs to demonstrate all those things for that to break things out. Again, I just want to stress, in my vision, Robotaxi and Optimus, the growth from that, which we'll cover in the next video, that dwarfs everything else. But for those who are skeptical and say, I don't know when Robotaxi is coming, I don't know when Optimus is coming, and it may be a few years away, you may see these small breakouts occur before you see Robotaxi and before you see Optimus breaking out and causing investors to dramatically increase the share price. The next one is Cybertruck. Tesla's currently on a path to 250,000 units of Cybertruck a year. The market for Cybertruck is mostly in North America. It's a larger vehicle. I'm here in Thailand. Thailand is the number 2 market in the world for pickup trucks, but the pickup trucks are smaller than Cybertruck. And the price point is much, much lower. You're looking at Ford Ranger class pickup trucks instead of Ford F-150 class pickup trucks, which is significantly smaller. You can get a new pickup here in Thailand for maybe a little over 20, 25, maybe 25 or $30,000. Cybertruck, optimistically will get down to $60,000. So it wouldn't be very competitive in Thailand, which is the next largest market outside of the United States. Maybe there'll be a smaller Cybertruck at some point, but I think just in the US alone, I think you could see US, North America, US and Canada, maybe a little bit of Mexico, you could see 500,000 units a year. Average selling price maybe $70,000. That's $35 billion in revenue and $7 billion in gross profit. On its own, not a huge jump compared to where Tesla is already, but when you combine that with semi, when you combine that with Megapack, you're starting to get bigger and bigger numbers. And I think we're going to see Cybertruck start to impact quarterly numbers towards the end of this year. It may start to show up in the numbers in Q3, but in Q4, we're going to start to see a really positive effect, and then early 2025. So Cybertruck may start impacting the market's perception of revenue and gross profit in early 2025. So it's a smaller breakout, but it's earlier because we know Cybertruck is already delivering and they're already ramping and they're already scaling. I've got a wild card. A lot of people don't agree with me on this one. I think a new Model X would be a big deal on the level of Cybertruck in terms of value creation for Tesla. A new Model X seating 7 people with the latest manufacturing advancements, figure you're going to have 48-volt wiring, you're going to have rear wheel steering. Maybe you'll have rear wheel steering on the new Model X. Basically, I see a new Model X based on the Model Y platform. Just make it a little longer, maybe make it a tiny bit wider, a foot longer, an inch or two wider. Now you've got a legitimate third row. You sell it for $60,000 average selling price. And I think that sells 250,000 units a year in North America alone, 500,000 units globally. That's another $30 billion in revenue for the company, $6 billion in gross profit. And the gross profit might be higher because the manufacturing method is going to be pretty straightforward. And I just want to note here, the Semi, the Cybertruck, and a new Model X would all likely, well, we know Cybertruck uses 4680 cells. We think it's likely that Semi is going to use 4680 cells. A new Model X, at least some of them might use 4680 cells. Maybe the ones in China wouldn't, the ones produced in China wouldn't, but the ones in North America would. And so that benefits from ramping a 4680. And you could look at 4680 itself as a breakout, but I don't see 4680 being something. 4680 cells, for those people who don't know, Tesla's manufacturing their own batteries. 4680 is a new size format. Tesla is working on making them cost competitive for themselves versus supplier cells. And that can lower, and then there's tax breaks that go along with manufacturing cells in North America, manufacturing battery packs in North America. So there's advantages, but I don't think investors are going to price that in because it's not its own revenue line. It's like a reduction in the cost of goods sold, and it may not be that significant. I don't think it's going to be that much of a drop in the cost of goods sold, but what it does is it secures Tesla's supply chain for being able to make vehicles in case there's some kind of disruption in the supply chain. In long term, it enables Tesla to maybe produce more advanced products or deliver Semi with more efficiency, Cybertruck with more efficiency, more range, that kind of thing. Now, it's speculative. I don't think we're going to see a new Model X until sometime in 2025, probably late 2025, hitting the books. Maybe not until 2026. And a lot of people think I'm crazy. If you look at the market for 7-passenger SUV is pretty large and global, and Tesla doesn't really serve it yet. And you could say, well, they're going to do a cyber SUV, but the cost of manufacturing a cyber SUV is going to be much higher than the cost of manufacturing basically an extended Model Y. It seems like a really simple thing to just make an extended Model Y and incorporate some features from the new manufacturing technologies they've developed. That's a decent sized market. 500,000 vehicles a year seems reasonable. $60,000 average selling price seems reasonable. This is doable. The next breakout is the one a lot of people think is likely to happen, is a smaller version of Model Y or maybe a smaller version of Model 3, lower cost vehicles, which they've more than hinted at. We're going to have some lower cost vehicles coming soon. I think they said more vehicles coming, including more affordable vehicles. So that leaves the window open for a new Model X as well. But smaller version of Model Y, smaller version of Model 3, maybe using the latest manufacturing technology because they said they would incorporate some of the new advances, and probably using low-cost lithium iron phosphate batteries, especially outside North America. You could see an average selling price of maybe $30,000 and sell 3 million units a year globally. Well, that's $90 billion in revenue. That's basically almost doubling what Tesla does now. I'm not sure whether gross margins would be as high on a smaller vehicle. Typically in the auto industry, smaller vehicles don't tend to have as high margins as larger, more expensive vehicles. But I wouldn't count out Tesla being able to figure out how to do it. So that might be another $10 billion in gross profit from these. Maybe they get to 20% gross margin. I think that's kind of a stretch. One more breakout would be a Tesla van. A lot of people think a Tesla van is coming. My analysis, a Tesla van might not be as much of a game changer as people think, but the global market for a vehicle like that is probably over 1 million units a year. I think Tesla could sell 300,000 units a year of a van. Average selling price may be $50,000. Maybe it'd be higher, but I think $50,000 is a good guess. That'd be another $15 billion in revenue and $3 billion in gross profit at 20% margins. And we might see that in 2025. Some people think we're going to see the van at the October 10th event. Each individual breakout isn't that huge. Cybertruck is pretty big. Semi is pretty big. When you add, and Megapack is pretty big. When you add them all together, if you don't get all of these, but you get a few of them, you might see another $30 to $40 billion in annual gross profit, which is more than double Tesla's current annual gross profits from 2023, let's say. So there's a decent chance that investors will see these things and put them together sometime in 2025, maybe late 2025 or early 2026, as Semi, Cybertruck, Megapack, and maybe a compact all come together. And collectively, that could double the stock price to $500 a share or even more. So that's the small breakout. I'm still looking for Tesla stock to go to $1,000 a share, Tesla stock to go to $5,000 a share. And those breakouts come when Robotaxi reaches a certain level, when Optimus reaches a certain level, and I'll talk about that in the next video. Please check out the t-shirts, the Tesla and Air t-shirt and other t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please support me as a YouTube channel member, as a subscriber on the X platform. on warrenredlick.locals.com, the Daily Lie, or as a Patreon supporter. Please check out my other videos. Like this video, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.